Chapter 201 to 202. Any idea why this meeting was called Hiruzen? Danzo asked, in his emotionless tone, but an underlying curiosity was unmistakable in his eye. Every clan head had a right to call for a council meeting if they had a serious issue to be discussed. Such a call, however, needed the approval of 2 more clan heads, since it was not the Hokage calling it. This rule was actually a nice little way to get around the Hokage. I have no idea, my friend. Hiruzen answered as he walked towards the council chambers without a worry. Hiruzen knew the laws of Konoha by heart, and as such, he was aware that whatever would be discussed would not be overly important in the grand scheme of things. While the clan heads could bypass him in this way, they would still need his approval for any major change. My guess is either some dispute between clans, or an announcement of a new business venture of the Nara clan. Hiruzen shrugged. Danzo, though, was very nonplussed by that answer. The whole problem was that it was the Nara clan calling for the meeting. The Nara clan never did things like that. Not once since the founding of Konoha. Announcement of a business venture, my ass. Danzo mentally grumbled. The whole clan is so lazy, they would wait however long until the next scheduled council meeting to announce something like that. He rolled his eyes, not even deeming it necessary to mentally comment about the stupid idea of the Nara clan being in a dispute with someone else. It would take a murder or kidnapping of their clansmen to get them motivated enough to move their asses. Danzo knew, after all, that was the reason why he purposefully avoided recruiting any Nara into his route. He had enough problems without the motivated Nara clan on his ass. No amount of intelligence and strategic brilliance was worth that. Entering the council chamber, both Danzo and Hokage were greeted by the entire council already seated. Shikaku Nara, the man who called the meeting, was slouching in his seat with droopy eyes. Around him, Inoichi Yamanaka and Choza Akimichi, the 2 clan heads who granted their approval for the meeting. Around them were the clan heads of the Hyuga, Aburame, Inuzuka, and Uchiha clans. It pained Hiruzen to see that sorry state. At the start, there were no less than 17 clans in Konoha, all with a healthy population. Now, most clan seats on the shinobi side of the council were empty. Some, like Senju, out of choice, others, like Kurama, out of necessity. While the Senju clan had only 1 member, and thus wouldn't normally qualify for the council seat by normal rules. They were rich, and most importantly, a founding clan. Tsunade could sit on the council if she so wished. The Kurama clan, however, wasn't nearly as important, and because of their abysmal numbers in recent times, their privilege to sit on the council was lost. But the Kurama clan was only the most recent one to lose this privilege. There were Hatok, Mitarashi, Sarutobi, and many other clans that didn't fulfill the membership quota to sit on the Shinobi Council. As such, from the initial 17, only 7 clan heads now sat on the Shinobi Council. A pitiful state, really. The civilian side had 10 members. 5 seats were taken by rich merchants entrenched in very important business fields that provided the village with weapons, food, and other necessities. These seats were quasi-hereditary since the merchants usually gave the seat alongside their business to their progeny when they retired. The next 5 seats were voted in by the people of Konoha. Enlarging the civilian council was one of the follies Hiruzen agreed on to lighten his burden during the Third War. At first, it was only 5 seats with the important merchants, but now Hiruzen actually had a hard time finding a proper excuse to dismiss the 5 voted-in civilian members. It certainly was not a fun time, having 10 civilians and only 7 shinobi on the council. Not when the last set of seats belonged to the elders Humura Metokado, Kaharu Utatane, and Shimura Danzo. That was yet another can of worms that usually gave Hirusan a headache. The elders' support was very fickle. On one issue, they could support the Shinobi Council, on another, the civilian one. Thankfully, the elders were quite limited in their influence. And lastly, there was him, Hiro-san Sarutobi, the Hokage. 21 people in total if one didn't count all the ambus skulking around the shadows in the room. So then, what is she doing here? Hiruzen's eyes trailed towards the cheerfully humming Anko Mitarashi sitting in a guest seat as she waited for the start of the session, and suddenly, Hiruzen no longer felt all that worry-free about this meeting. The council meeting started, and Anko restlessly waited through all the inane procedures, all the meaningless talks, and making sure everybody was present despite clearly seeing nobody missing. Yup. She really didn't like politics and the formal procedures that needed to be followed. She was dying of boredom despite the patience brutally instilled in her by Orochimaru. Finally, 30 minutes after the start, Shikaku was given the word. Anko watched the man lift his head from the table and confusedly look around after. Choza nudged him before the gears in Shikaku's head started working as he lethargically stood up. I called this meeting on the insistence of my clan's longtime allies, the Senju clan. Shikaku slowly let out in a measured drawl that gave everybody ample time to realize why Anko was present. At least, the ninjas did, while the voted-in civilians were as clueless as it gets. Anko straightened her back, not due to the clueless and disgruntled glances from the elders and the Hokage, but due to what was coming next. The Senju clan asked me to present a case of custody for one Uzumaki Naruto to the Senju clan because of his heritage as a scion of the Uzumaki clan and his blood ties to Tsunade Senju through her grandmother Mito Uzumaki. The second Shikaku stopped talking and flopped back into his chair. A deafening silence engulfed the room. Not even the Ambu guards dared to breathe after hearing that. The topic of custody of Naruto Uzumaki was a frequent one a few years back. The clan heads wanted a boy either to strengthen their clans or simply to give him a home. Even the ever-isolationist Aburem clan tried to gain custody of him, if only because they knew the burden the boy carried. Alas, Hiruzen Sarutobi was the Hokage, and with the help of his elders, and using the hatred the civilian council had for the boy, he made damn sure to block any and all such proposals. Hiruzen was blindsided by this. He spent the last few days trying to figure out Tsunade's angle. He knew her. She would not be appeased so easily. At the very least, the second she got to know about her birthright. He expected her to storm her way into Konoha and try to yell his brain out, while also causing an unhealthy amount of collateral damage to vent her frustration. This calm and collected letter, with a working threat and set of reasonable demands, was so far out of his apprentice's modus operandi. Hiruzen was really worried. She baited me. Hiruzen understood. She made me waste time on her knowledge of the Konoha Creation Act, while his eyes coldly stared at Anko Mitarashi, the viper who slithered under his feet without him noticing. Hiruzen was not stupid. He knew well that Tsunade was the only one who could take care of Naruto, even if he disapproved. They shared blood, and that meant something. That was yet another reason why her absence in the village didn't bother him much. Unless she was in the village, she couldn't get custody. But now, Anko watched with an expertly hidden glee as the Hokage's eyes swept through his fellow councilman, and his lips set in a concerned frown. She felt proud of herself for pulling this off, especially since it was so obvious neither of the elders knew what was going to happen in the meeting. Maybe this manipulation and blackmail stuff is not all that bad. The process is dull and boring, but the result is sweet. Anko inwardly grinned while outwardly she projected a sweet, innocent smile that fooled nobody. She watched as Hirusen sat in his seat, most likely mulling over the situation and what he could do to prevent it, but in the end, the old man simply sighed and called for a vote. And so, the council voted. The 5 civilians from the important merchant families voted for giving custody to the Senju clan. Sanada had far too much blackmail on them for them to not give their vote in her favor. As expected, the Hyuga, Yamanaka, Nara, Akamichi, and surprisingly, even the Aburine clans voted in the Senju clan's favor. But the Hokage, the elders, Homura, and Kaharu, the remaining 5 voted in civilians. The Uchiha and Inuzuka clans voted against the proposition. Only Danzo abstained with a small knowing and calculating smirk, which meant it was a tie. 10 versus 10 with 1 neutral. Anko knew why Danzo abstained. He did the math after careful observation of the room. Now that it was a tie, the vote would be postponed, and that would give him a chance. He would probably try to approach her and scout out what he could get by supporting her. According to Rei and Tsunade, the man always wanted the Jinchuriki in his grasp. Unfortunately for the Cyclops wannabe, Tsunade put the matter into the most dependable hands in the entire Konoha. Anko amusedly observed the relieved looks on Hirusen's face. Shikaku stood up and actually smiled. Naruto Uzumaki is a civilian with a clan heritage. He is not yet a shinobi of the village. Hence the votes of the elders hold no value according to the laws of the village. As expected of Elder Shimura, you know our laws by heart, Shikaku said in a voice laced with amusement as Kaharu and Homura flushed. Danzo's smirk froze and Hirusen's pupils dilated. As such, the vote is 8 to 10 in favor of the proposition. Since the child is not yet a shinobi, the Hokage cannot overrule this. Shikaku glanced at Hirusen before turning towards Anko. Congratulations, Anko Mitarashi. Your and your clan's guardianship of Naruto Uzumaki was approved. Anko simply hummed and comfortably leaned back into her chair as the screaming contest started, as the unhappy civilians realized that the snake whore, as they called her, was the only member of the Senju clan present in the village. Naruto curiously stared at the woman, who caught him during one of his pranking escapades, and was currently walking through the village, while holding him under her armpit, as if he was a sack of potatoes. Admittedly, he would normally struggle, but his body felt oddly sluggish, preventing him from moving much. Naruto was not stupid. He recognized when he was beaten with no way out. Then, in Naruto's opinion, yet another surprising thing happened. The woman walked into a secluded part of the village, a part that Naruto recognized as the Senju compound. To his shock, the woman who kidnapped him only stopped in the backyard of one house and dropped him onto the ground, causing him to groan in slight pain as he impacted the hard surface, face first, due to being unable to move his body. Maybe it wasn't that smart to verbally antagonize her during their trip. Yo, brat. The woman squatted near him and started talking in a very annoyed manner. I am Anko Mitarashi, your new guardian, as of 2 hours ago. Now that was something that sent Naruto into a shocked silence, causing him to choke on his unspoken complaints. His eyes widened and his mouth started opening and closing, while his mind was unable to comprehend what exactly was going on. Yeah, I know, shocking, right? Anko dismissively waved her hand. Anyway, Lady Tsunade wasn't happy when she got to know her blood relative was treated badly by the village. She couldn't really come back due to the political climate in the village either, and that's where I came in. For the foreseeable future, we are stuck together, pipsqueak. Get used to it. Anko grinned, causing Naruto to blanch. 1,000 questions were swirling in Naruto's head all at once. but only one was important. Enough that he found himself voicing it out without even realizing it. I have a family. Naruto's body shook in. Even he didn't know what. Was he relieved, angry, sad? Anko slightly winced. She knew the kid wouldn't take the revelation well. Sighing, she shrugged. Yeah. Sorry, kid. Your family is not in Konoha, and getting to you is harder than you would expect. I suppose Lady Tsunade could get to you at a moment's notice, but it would cause a lot of trouble for her. The Hokage would never allow it, and even now it took a lot of blackmail for me to become your guardian, which puts you into the purview of the Senju clan. Anko cautiously added, observing Naruto for his reaction, and as expected, Naruto hid it well. But Anko was not a high-ranked for nothing. The brat already knew his mother's name, and I am glad you already have mistrust towards the Hokage. She grinned at the widening of Naruto's eyes. I have no idea, he started. Anko then quickly poked Naruto's forehead, right where the seal placed on him by Ringo was located, instantly silencing him. The very same seal that gave the kid knowledge when he needed it and functioned as a lie detector of sorts. Ray had no idea how would that go, but it was an experiment to see how would Naruto grow up. If he had something teaching him the important stuff and showing him who is and who isn't trustworthy. Oh, I think you know exactly what I mean, Naruto. Anko's grin widened as the kid realized she knew about his biggest secret. You, what, how? He exclaimed. The thing, giving him knowledge, teaching him, and causing him to know who he should trust, was with him for as long as he could remember. It was his most important secret, the only thing he could depend on in his life. While people avoided him, the voice in his head always told him what to do to survive. Always taught him how to better himself. How could the woman in front of him know about it? The seal on your forehead was created by Ray, the husband of Lady Tsunade. When it became apparent you were an Uzumaki, and there was no way to help you directly. They couldn't really take you in since you were a Jinchuriki. Anko slowly said, looking for any sign of shock on Naruto's face. When she found none, she mentally nodded. The kid already knew. Konoha would not allow it, hence, it took them so long to get someone to take care of you, which is you. Naruto slightly narrowed his eyes at Anko, who rolled her eyes. Yes, you will live with me in the Senju compound from now on. I will provide necessities for you, and I will train you. You will start the academy soon. By the way, a good thing you didn't pester the Hokage for early admission. It would only annoy the teachers there. Lady Tsunade isn't really in a trusting mood. So I was made to retire from my kunoichi duties for a few years and will now focus on your and my own training in the time being. I will be trained. Yatta Naruto jumped up, cheering in a very silly way. Only a shuriken scratching his cheek stopped him in his spot with a deer in the headlights expression as he looked at Anko, whose eyebrow was twitching. Stop acting like an idiot. I know enough to recognize your facade. I have nothing against you using it to fool the idiots outside the Senju compound. But here you will act like yourself. Too much acting can be bad for you, lest you really start believing the act real. Anko admonished, walking forward and ruffling Naruto's hair. For some reason, Naruto couldn't find it in himself to give her a cheeky retort as he usually would. Nor could he tell her off for treating him like a kid. It feels kinda nice, he thought and blushed as he felt Anko's hand ruffling his hair. I too am not very liked by the villagers, Anko said, making the warm mood turn serious. I know it is easier to show a facade of cheerfulness, but it can hurt you if you overdo it. It certainly hurt me, kid, she bitterly admitted. It took a nice heart-to-heart conversation with Lady Tsunade to show me what I was doing is wrong. I don't want you to one day find yourself so comfortable with your facade that it will become reality." Naruto briefly pondered Anko's words and had to admit he didn't want to always be his naive, stupid, cheerful self. When he grew up, he wanted to be able to drop his facade. But could he really get so used to it that it would become second nature to him? That was something he really didn't want to experience. Deciding to change the mood between them, Naruto quickly changed the topic. "So, what will you teach me?" Apparently, that was a wrong question if the sudden vicious grin Anko gave him was any indication. Not a second after, a wave of a killing intent strong enough to make him stiffen, but weak enough that he could still move, engulfed him. "I will teach you how to survive." Naruto only barely dodged the kunai aimed at his shoulder as he thought, "Maybe staying in my old apartment would be safer."